Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. The second I stepped through the side entrance of the country club, I knew something was off. People were crowding the foyer, dressed in pastel linens and summer heels, fanning themselves like it was a southern debutante ball. I scanned the long table with the name cards and floral runners. Mine wasn't there, not under my name, not under Marcus's, not under any misspelled variation they usually used when they didn't care enough to ask. I checked again. Nothing. Before I could say a word, she appeared, like she'd been waiting. "Oh, hey," my stepmom said, blocking the path with her arms crossed. One hip jutted out like she owned the place. Her dress was champagne-colored, satin, expensive-looking. Her lips curled into that fake smile she wore for funerals and Facebook photos. "The family tables are full, unfortunately. You'll have to find a seat with the other guests." My eyes moved past her. My dad stood just behind, hands folded behind his back like a disappointed school principal. His tie was crooked, eyes cast downward. Then he did it. One stiff nod. No words, just that little motion that said, "This is what it is. Don't make a scene." I didn't make a scene. I didn't ask where my name card was or why my own sister hadn't made space for her only sibling with a badge and a career. I just breathed once, slow and steady. I've learned how to take a clean erasure without flinching. Marcus noticed. He always notices. He leaned in and gave my hand a short, firm squeeze. Not pity, just quiet support. "I'm gonna go check on the catering setup," he said. His voice was soft but sure, like always. Then he let go and slipped off through the crowd. Inside, the band struck the final note of "My country, 'tis of thee," and the doors to the main hall opened. People filed in, laughing, adjusting corsages, ready to toast the new Mr. and Mrs. I hung back, still standing beside the seating chart, my reflection dim in the glass beside it. No place card, no mention. Just a silent rewrite of who counted and who didn't. Quick note, before we go deeper, tell us, which city or country are you watching from? I walked in anyway. Found an empty seat near the back, beside a cousin I barely knew and some friend of a friend's boyfriend. The champagne was already sweating. The small talk buzzed around me like static. I watched my sister float through the room like she owned it all. White lace, glowing skin, the center of everyone's orbit. But for me, the day was already gone. It was stolen the second I got there. At the reception, I kept my face neutral. I knew how to survive a long event surrounded by people who acted like I wasn't there. I'd been doing it since I was 9. After Mom died, it didn't take Dad long. A year, maybe. One day we were eating frozen pizza in front of the TV, the next he was shaving every morning and bringing a woman named Karen to the house with her fake laugh and too much perfume. She smiled at me once, just once. That smile was gone the day she moved in. She didn't scream, didn't curse, didn't hit. She just made it clear I didn't fit the picture she was painting. I was the smudge. Her words were polite enough. "You're getting big for those clothes," or "girls your age should know how to sit properly." But her eyes said what she really meant. I didn't belong. My older sister, Brianna, went along with it. She was already turning into Karen 2.0, pink nail polish, long straight hair, soft voice around boys. My little brother, Josh, was too young to understand, and Karen spoiled him to keep him close. Me? I was the leftover, tomboy, odd one out. Dad didn't yell. That would have been too much effort. Instead, he just shut down. He had this way of going completely blank, staring past me like I was just air. If I got a B instead of an A, if I wore jeans to church, if I didn't smile for a photo, he'd go silent for days. No eye contact, no good morning, no pass the salt, just gone. It was worse than yelling. At least yelling meant I mattered enough to upset someone. Birthdays were the clearest line. Brianna had themed parties, ponies, princesses, pool rentals. Josh got moon bounces and gift bags. My birthday? Once, I got a grocery store cake with the wrong name written on it in blue icing. To Jenna, it said, "I'm not Jenna." Karen shrugged and scraped it off with a knife. I was 11. My room stayed bare. No posters, no color, no effort. Just beige walls and a single shelf by the window. That shelf mattered to me. It held every little art trophy or ribbon I'd won in school. Small-town contests, nothing big. But they were mine. Proof I could do something right. One day, I came home and the shelf was empty. I thought maybe it fell. I checked the floor. Nothing. Karen walked past my doorway holding a trash bag. That junk was clutter, she said without stopping. You're not a child anymore. I stared at the wall for a long time that night. The outline of dust where the trophies used to sit was still visible. I didn't cry. I don't remember crying much back then. It felt useless, like trying to signal a boat that already passed. So I got quiet, not in the scared, tiptoeing way. I just stopped expecting anything. I read books in corners. I drew on the back of grocery lists. I taught myself to fix the washing machine when it broke. No one noticed. Holidays were the same. One Thanksgiving, Karen accidentally forgot to buy enough chairs. I ate mashed potatoes on the back porch in 40-degree wind. My dad stepped out halfway through to hand me a plate of turkey. No napkin, no apology. Just handed it off like I was a delivery driver and went back inside. I used to dream about finding somewhere else. A friend's house, a fire station, a cabin in the woods. Somewhere I could be real. Not tolerated, not erased, just present. I wasn't stupid. I knew it wasn't normal. Other kids got hugs and magnets on the fridge. I got silence and a checklist of things not to do. Still, I kept trying. For a while, I'd clean the kitchen without being asked. I'd bring home good grades. I got a job walking dogs on weekends to stay out of the house. None of it changed anything. Every time I made a move to be noticed, the world inside that house reminded me where I stood. Behind Brianna's spotlight, behind Josh's birthday balloons, behind Karen's cold smile and Dad's stiff nod. Eventually, the hurt stopped being sharp. It just hummed in the background, like static in your ears when the room's too quiet. And like static, I learned how to tune it out. Not because it stopped, but because I had to. Tuning it out didn't mean I stopped needing something. I still needed to feel real. Not in that house. I'd given up on that. But somewhere. That's when I saw a flyer stapled to the corkboard in the grocery store lobby. Fire Cadet Program. Ages 14 to 18. Learn, serve, lead. It was crooked and sun-faded. I took it anyway. The first day at the fire station smelled like burnt rubber and cheap coffee. No one smiled or asked if I was nervous. They handed me a schedule and pointed toward the gear racks. I was the only girl in the group that day. Didn't bother me. The drills were hard. Hose lifts, search and rescue crawls, gear checks down to the buckles. They didn't hand out praise, and that made it better. If you got noticed, it was because you earned it. I came home that night bruised and soaked in sweat. Karen looked up from the couch, barely. You smell like a tire fire, she said. That a new perfume? Dad didn't even look up, just said, you'll grow out of it. But I didn't. I kept going. Every Tuesday and Saturday, I'd walk 1.5 miles to the station. My hands started to get calloused. I learned to carry a charged hose line with one partner. I learned to speak clear and fast on radios. Got certified in CPR before my 16th birthday. Ran volunteer shifts on holidays because I had nothing better to do. That place became more home than my house ever was. When I turned 16, we had a countywide drill competition. Timed search simulation inside a blackout trailer. Our captain put me in charge of the 3-man team. I ran it tight. Found all dummies and under the limit. Directed traffic during the post-drill debrief like I'd been born holding a clipboard. They handed me a plaque at the end. Gold trim, black background, said, Outstanding Cadet, Simulation Lead. I brought it home. Held it up to Karen at the kitchen counter. She glanced once and said, That's nice, hun. Stick it in a drawer so it doesn't get scratched. Next morning, I found it under the grocery coupons and expired Bed Bath & Beyond mailers. That's when something snapped quiet in me. Not loud like a movie moment. Just this cold, firm click. I wasn't going to waste energy pushing for space in a house built without me in mind. So I started building somewhere else. I asked the station captain about training programs. He gave me pamphlets, fire academy, EMT bridge programs, even hazmat certifications. I ate them up, studied late, skipped prom to do a weekend ride-along with the overnight shift. I kept every uniform shirt, every schedule, every roster I got. They went in a duffel under my bed, zipped tight like it was holding my future. Karen didn't ask where I went most days. Dad signed one permission form for a CPR research class and never brought it up again. But at the station, I mattered. I was the one other cadets asked for help when strapping gear. The trainers called me by name, not kid or girl or her. My name. Every patch I earned got sewn onto my shirt by the wife of the shift chief. She barely knew me, but she said, You've got hands like my niece. Steady. That meant more to me than anything my dad had said in 5 years. I started keeping a notebook, just a cheap spiral-bound one. In it, I wrote down every skill I picked up, every situation I handled. Patient transfer during drill. Radio malfunction, switched to backup channel. Checked air tanks for full team without prompt. Dumb little things, maybe, but they were mine. Recognition didn't flood in. It came in patches. A head nod from the station captain. A good work from a field medic. One time a paramedic tossed me a granola bar and said, "You think quick for a rookie." I held on to that all week. No one at home knew who I was becoming. They didn't ask. They didn't care. But out there, beyond the beige walls and quiet dinners, I was building something. I wasn't waiting for them to see it anymore. I was building it for me. I was 19 when I got hired at Station 8, a rural department out past Jackson Hollow. Population of the town was maybe 2,000, and most calls were heat exhaustion or livestock in ditches. Long shifts, crap pay, and gear that smelled like it had survived the 80s. But I didn't care. I had a locker, a turnout coat with my name stitched on it, and a cot in the corner room I'd sleep on between shifts. It was mine. 3 weeks in, the night alarm went off just after 2 a.m. I jolted up so fast I hit my knee on the bunk rail. Dispatch voice crackled. Structure fire, multiple occupants, possible entrapment, responding units, Station 8. My boots were on before the full sentence hit. We pulled onto a dirt road lined with pine trees and busted fences. I saw the orange glow before we got close. One of those old trailers, aluminum siding, wood steps, already lit up like a matchbook. "Hydrant's a no-go," our captain said. "We're running tanker only. We go fast or we don't go in." The air felt tight before I even stepped out of the truck. I threw on my mask, checked my partner's straps, and moved toward the door. It was half melted. Smoke poured out from a busted window. The neighbor was yelling something about a kid still inside. No hesitation. We went in. The heat hit like someone slammed a door on my chest. Smoke dropped fast, cutting visibility to maybe 2 feet. My partner and I split by instinct. He went toward the back bedrooms. I stuck to the hallway, staying low, sweeping my hand across scorched walls. That's when I found the first one. A man, maybe late 30s, slumped in the corner near the kitchen, unconscious but breathing shallow. I called it in, flipped him to recovery, started dragging. Heavy, dead weight. My gloves were slick with sweat. My radio buzzed with my partner's voice. "Still searching. No sign of the kid." I got the father outside, dumped him to the paramedics, turned right back around. This time, the ceiling groaned. Inside, the hallway was worse. Smoke thick as wet cotton, walls starting to blister. I scanned under beds, behind doors. Nothing. Then I saw the shape. Small, curled up behind a tipped-over dresser in the far corner of what used to be a bedroom. The boy was maybe 6, frozen, wide eyes. He didn't scream, didn't move. I dropped to my knees and yelled through the mask, "We're getting out. Now I've got you." He didn't speak, just grabbed onto my coat like his life depended on it, because it did. I slung him over my shoulder and pushed back through the smoke. Couldn't see anything now. Heat was all around, crackling above. My air was low. My neck itched with sweat. Every step felt like dragging through glue. I followed the hose line out, hand over hand, counting seconds. The second we hit daylight, the kid gasped like he'd been born again. He clung to me with both arms, wouldn't let go until the paramedics pried him off. His mom was sobbing behind the tape line. When she saw him alive, she dropped to her knees right there in the dirt. I just stood there, swaying on my feet, smoke still in my throat, watching the trailer collapse in on itself. Next morning, I woke up to a ringing phone. My captain's voice on the line, "You made the paper! Local rookie pulls off double rescue. They used your academy photo, told you that buzz cut would haunt you." I laughed once, just once, then hung up. Nobody else called. Not Dad, not Karen, not Brianna. Nothing. Later that week, I heard from my aunt, the only one in the family who ever tried. She said Karen told her I'd gotten lucky and that the real credit probably went to the team. She said Dad just nodded when she mentioned it, the same stiff nod he always used when I came up in conversation like a minor inconvenience. I didn't respond. But a week after that, a plain white envelope showed up at the station. No return address. Inside was a thank you card. Simple. Said, "You saved our family. We'll never forget." Tucked behind it was a photo of the boy, cleaned up, smiling, birthday cake in front of him, 6 candles, a plastic fire truck on top. I pinned it inside my locker, right above my gear. That photo stayed there through every shift after. I didn't hang up the newspaper article, Didn't frame the plaque they gave me at the town meeting, just that photo, because it wasn't about proving something anymore. Not to them, not to Karen, not to my dad. I already knew who I was, and so did that kid. I was still working long shifts when the department sent me to a community EMT refresher course. It was held in the back room of an old community center with flickering lights and chairs that pinched the backs of your thighs. That's where I met Marcus. He was in uniform when he walked in, patrol blues, name tag crooked, radio clipped to his belt, sat one seat away from me, and didn't say much during intros. When the instructor split us into scenario teams, we got paired up. I was ready for another guy who'd try to run the whole drill by himself. Most of them did. But Marcus wasn't like that. He just looked at the checklist, glanced at me, and said, "You want airway or assessment?" "Assessment," I said. "Cool. I'll grab vitals." No swagger, no sideways comments about girls in uniform. Just direct, steady, quiet. We worked together for 3 days straight. He always did his part. No cutting corners, no showboating. During breaks, we started talking. First it was about the drills, protocol stuff. Then it drifted into real life. Calls we'd seen, town gossip, our mutual hatred for gas station coffee. After the course wrapped, he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee that didn't taste like burnt socks. I said sure. Turned out we both liked sitting in quiet diners more than noisy bars. We both worked too many hours. We both had families we didn't talk about much. With Marcus, it was easy. There was no audition, no mask. I didn't have to compete for space in the room or explain why silence made me flinch sometimes. He never pushed for answers, but he listened when I gave them. Fully. Not the polite kind of listening, the real kind, where someone actually hears you. He never called me strong, like it was a compliment for surviving. He just treated me like someone worth knowing, like I was already whole. I remember one night after a late dinner. Parking lot was empty, moon out, both of us leaning against his car. He said, "You ever feel like no one ever saw you, and then one day someone does, and it's like, finally?" I looked at him and said, "Every damn day." That was it. No fireworks. Just the solid click of something locking into place. We kept things simple. No grand gestures, no social media, couple goals, nonsense. We took walks, worked opposite shifts, sometimes didn't talk for 2 days straight because of work. But when we did talk, it counted. A few years in, we were walking through Liberty Park on a Sunday. The weather was perfect. Overcast, breeze cutting through the heat. We were passing a beat-up city bench near the pond when he stopped. I turned, confused, and saw him crouch down. Not full knee, just a kind of lazy half-kneel. He didn't pull out a ring, didn't give a speech, just looked up at me and said, "Want to do life together?" I didn't cry. I didn't ask if he was sure. I just nodded and said, "Yeah." I do. It felt like finally stepping onto solid ground after years of swimming through concrete. That night, I told him about the shelf, the one with the trophies, the day it vanished. He didn't say sorry. He didn't go soft. He just took my hand and said, "You know they didn't break you, right?" I squeezed his hand back. "Yeah, I know now." Marcus never asked for anything big. When we talked wedding plans, we agreed on one rule. It had to feel like us. So we rented out the VFW rec hall in town. Ugly tile floor, folding chairs, the smell of old coffee and polish in the corners. My crew offered to help set up. His uncle offered to smoke the brisket. His mom volunteered to bake pies instead of ordering cake. That's how it started. Real, hands-on effort from people who showed up and gave a damn. Against my better judgment, I sent the invites. One to my dad and Karen. One to Brianna. One to Josh, who was barely speaking to me by then. A week later, I got the RSVP. No note, no return address. Just a card that said, "To attending." Nothing else. No names. Not even a signature. Then Brianna texted, "Can't make it. Work." That was it. No congrats. No wish I could be there. Still, I held out some tiny hope. Like maybe, just maybe, standing in that room, seeing their daughter in dress blues with a badge on her chest and a man who loved her might do something. Nudge them out of the script they'd always stuck to. The morning of the wedding, the rec hall was buzzing by 8. Marcus's cousins were hauling coolers of lemonade in. His little nieces were tying white ribbons around chairs. His mom walked in with a tray of cherry pies and hugged me like I was hers. Nobody from my side had arrived yet. I walked into the supply room we'd turned into a dressing area. took out my pressed formal blues. Every patch was sewn flat, every striped line just right. No makeup, no veil. Just me, in the uniform I earned. I zipped it up slow, staring at myself in the cracked mirror above the utility sink. My hands were steady. My chest was calm. "You've earned this space," I said out loud, not whispered, not shaky, just the truth. I walked out and found Marcus adjusting chairs near the DJ booth. He looked up, smiled, and gave me that look, the one that always hit like gravity easing off your shoulders. "You look like yourself," he said. "That's the point." At 10:40, Karen walked in. Gold sweater, pearls, not a single wrinkle out of place. She didn't say hello, just scanned the room like she was inspecting a restaurant she'd never eaten. My dad followed behind her. Same slouched posture, same tie from Brianna's wedding. He gave me the nod, that stiff little nothing of a gesture I'd come to hate more than yelling. They sat in the second row like they'd been dragged there by obligation. No gift, no card, no offer to help. Just present enough to say they came. I didn't bother with small talk. There was nothing to salvage. Marcus's family filled the rest of the front rows, people with tears in their eyes before the music even started. My side looked like they were at jury duty. Still, I held it together. I focused on the right things, the good things. Marcus, steady beside me, his mom wiping her eyes. My crew in uniform, lined up like family. That morning, I stood taller than I ever had in my life. Not for them, not to prove anything, just because it was finally mine. The ceremony went quick, just the way we wanted it. No fluff, no dramatic readings. We exchanged our vows like two people signing a contract we were proud to enter. Straightforward, solid. After we were pronounced husband and wife, there was applause, a couple whoops from Marcus's uncles, and then the music kicked in. I exhaled, calm, ready for barbecue and dancing and a night that was finally about something good. We walked into the reception hall through the side entrance, right as guests were finding their seats. Someone handed me a glass of lemonade. I took one sip, then froze. The seating chart stood on an easel near the dessert table, white cardstock with calligraphy labels and tiny plastic gems glued on. And just like that, it punched me in the gut. My name wasn't there. Again, not at the family of the bride table, not at any head table, just not there, like I'd never existed. Like a piece of tape had been peeled off the map. I stared so hard my vision blurred. Then I heard it. That voice I'd hated since I was 10. "Don't let her ruin our big day." Karen, behind me. Same syrupy tone she used at Brianna's wedding, like I was some ex-employee who showed up to the wrong company picnic. I turned, and there she was. Arms folded, lip gloss untouched, not a wrinkle on her face. She gave me a tight little smile like I was an old problem resurfacing. My dad stood beside her, blue blazer, same dull tie, and that damn nod. That stiff little gesture that had erased me from rooms, holidays, photos, and now my own wedding. That was when it snapped. Not with yelling, not with tears, just stillness, the kind that comes right before everything flips. I didn't move. I couldn't. My legs locked, stomach knotted. I felt heat in my ears and the air go thin. Then I saw Marcus. He'd been standing near the buffet, talking to one of his cousins. But he saw me, saw my posture shift, saw the way I'd stiffen like I was bracing for a blow. And without saying a word, he moved. He walked straight to the DJ table, took the mic from its stand, and tapped it once. The room quieted. Forks paused midair. Music stopped mid-note. "Can I have your attention?" Marcus said, voice calm, steady. People turned. "I just want to take a moment," he said, eyes scanning the room, "to introduce someone properly." I blinked. My breath caught. He looked at me, just for a second, then back at the crowd. "This is the woman who saved my life," he said. Literally. I was bleeding out from a crash off Route 34. EMS was delayed. She showed up, no hesitation, and held pressure for 10 minutes straight until backup arrived. Kept me awake the whole time. If she hadn't, I wouldn't be standing here. Silence. Then someone clapped. Then more. And then the room erupted. Applause rolled through the hall like thunder. People stood up. Chairs scraped the floor. I heard someone say, "She's a firefighter?" And another whisper, "That's her? That's the bride?" I stood there frozen. Not from pain this time, but from shock. My body didn't know how to handle this kind of noise. I wasn't used to it, the kind that was for me. My stepmom's face cracked. She looked around, confused, like someone had changed the script without telling her. My dad sat down slowly, eyes hollow, face pale. No nod this time, nothing. Marcus walked over to me and offered his hand. I took it. He led me to the center of the room, right in front of everyone. No speech, no explanation, just presence. People were still clapping. His captain came forward and clapped me on the back. One of the station volunteers gave me a salute like I was higher rank. Strangers leaned over to shake my hand. One older woman dabbed her eyes with a napkin and said, "You're the one who carried that little boy out, right?" I nodded once. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just let it happen. For once, I didn't have to fight for space. It was already there, built by truth. By the people who saw me clearly, not as a guest, not as a seat filler, but as the bride, the woman. The name they couldn't erase. The clapping didn't stop. It just kept rolling. Loud, raw, honest. One of Marcus's aunts stood up and started a slow clap, like she was at a damn football game. Other people rose to their feet, chairs pushed back, napkins dropped, all eyes on me. My skin burned with it, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of heat you feel when someone finally sees you. Then I heard the voice, deep, older, clear. "Tell them about the pile-up on I-9. It was Marcus's old captain, Tom Landry, retired 2 years ago, but still carried the voice of authority. He stepped forward, raised his glass slightly. "This woman," he said, pointing at me, "took command of a multi-car crash that damn near killed 6 people. I remember it clear. Ice storm, 20-car chain reaction. Units were overwhelmed. Dispatch couldn't keep up. She got their second truck in, took charge before I even parked. People hushed again. You could hear the ice melting in cups. She pulled a pregnant woman from the back seat of a flipped Corolla, stabilized her until medevac landed, managed triage, traffic, and transport, all while half the team was stuck behind a jackknifed semi. And after all that, she stayed late to help wash down the rigs." He nodded once. "You don't have to clap again, but you damn well should know who you're celebrating today." Another wave of applause hit. It felt heavier this time, not louder, just deeper. Like people weren't just clapping because of what Marcus said, they were clapping because they knew. I didn't look at my dad. I didn't have to. He stayed seated, stiff, stone-faced, the way he always went when the world refused to follow his script. He didn't blink, didn't move. But Karen, she was trying. I watched her lean toward a woman in a blue dress, whispering fast, hands fluttering in fake confusion. I could hear enough to catch the tone. They must have forgotten to include her. There must have been a misprint. The woman leaned away, didn't nod, didn't agree. Just gave her a look like, "Don't insult my ears." That was enough. The shift had happened. The room wasn't buying it anymore. The story they'd spun, quiet, invisible, unremarkable girl, was shattered. Every lie that had worked at holidays and family barbecues was dead now, publicly, loudly. I stayed still, didn't smile, didn't fold into myself either. Just stood there in my dress blues and let it all hit. Guests who hadn't said more than a nod during the ceremony were suddenly lining up. A cousin of Marcus's shook my hand twice. Someone from my old station clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Took long enough for the room to catch up." Another guy, someone I didn't even recognize, leaned in and said, "You're the real deal. My niece talks about you like you're a Marvel character." One woman gripped my arm like she needed to feel muscle under the jacket. "You're the one who saved the boy in that fire, right?" Her voice cracked when she said it. I nodded once. "Yeah, that was me." She smiled like she'd met Elvis. Across the room, Karen was shrinking. You could see it. The tight pull of her mouth, the sudden interest in the tablecloth, the way her shoulders curled in like maybe if she got small enough, no one would remember she was the one who erased me from the seating chart. But they remembered. They all saw now. Every skipped holiday, every scraped name, every birthday with no candles. It was all on the table, and it wasn't mine to carry anymore. Then Marcus came back over. He didn't say much, just took my hand, leaned in close, and whispered it against my ear so only I could hear. "They'll never erase you again." My chest pulled tight. Not with sadness, but something solid. I nodded once, because I finally believed it. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror in Marcus's old guest room, still in my formal blues. I hadn't changed out of them. Couldn't. Sunlight pushed through the blinds, streaking across the badge on my chest. My collar was wrinkled and my braid was falling apart, but I didn't care. I looked at myself, really looked, and saw her clearly. Not the backup kid, not the background body in family photos, just me, a full person. No permission slip required. I ran a hand down the front of my jacket, over the fabric I'd worked to earn. No patch or plaque in the world meant more than what was standing there in that mirror. From the kitchen, I heard Marcus's voice. "Coffee's on." I walked out and found him already at the table, feet bare, hair sticking up in every direction. He pushed a mug toward me and said, "You stood taller than anyone in that room yesterday." I didn't say anything, just sat down and wrapped my hands around the cup. An envelope sat by the toaster, one of a few we'd gotten overnight. Some with local addresses, some from out of state. No return address on this one either, but the handwriting was careful. Inside was a note that said, "Watching you speak changed something in me." No name, just that. I folded it, tucked it under the salt shaker, and nodded once to myself. They kept coming for days. Short letters, emails, Facebook messages. People who'd been at the wedding. People who'd heard about it secondhand. They talked about truth, about courage, about standing up even when the room isn't built for you. None of them came from my father, or Karen, or Brianna, or Josh. Not a single text, not a voicemail, not a scribbled note pretending to explain it away. The silence stayed. But this time, it didn't feel like weight pressing down. It felt like a wall I'd finally walked past. Because now there was something louder. Something they couldn't mute or minimize or shove in a drawer under coupons. I had a life. I had a name. And I wasn't going to let anyone skip it again.